food storage with Mylar bags, and 5-gallon buckets with lids. Welcome back to Survival Existence. In order to store food away for long-term storage, all you really need is Mylar bags, an iron, and some sort of stick, even a broom handle will do, to put under the bags when you seal them with your iron. Foods that you use for long-term storage, such as rice and various kinds of dry beans, are quite easily stored for a good many years, far many more years than I'll actually live myself, for long-term storage. Whenever you store things like rice and beans and various other dry products, it's best to also, along with them, perhaps in a different container, also store different kinds of spices and broths in order to flavor your food, or you'll certainly have food fatigue and stop eating. In just a minute, I'm going to bag up and seal off for long-term storage about 40 pounds of long grain rice. People often look at long-term storage such as this as a very difficult task. It's not. It's quite simple. I have 2 separate bags of 10 each of Mylar bags, along with 2,000 cc oxygen absorbers that I'll put inside the bag right before I seal in order to remove any excess air and any kind of moisture. It'll be absorbed into that oxygen absorber. Also, with this particular brand of bag, it comes with instructions on the back of the bag of how to use the oxygen absorbers and also the Mylar bag and the temperature that you should have your iron at, which in this case it's on the number 5 setting on this particular brand of iron. But if yours doesn't have this 1 through 7 settings, where it sits is for ironing wool cloth. The temperature of your iron when you seal these Mylar bags is quite important, and it's right at the bottom end of the steam setting on your iron. Of course, you don't want to use the steam setting for sealing these bags. You don't want to introduce any moisture into the bags. You want them to simply seal. If you have your iron too hot, it will inadequately seal the bag and also will probably melt it. On the other end of the spectrum, if you have it too cool, the bag just simply will not seal, and then your food that you've stored for long-term storage is subject to become ruined just simply by being exposed to oxygen and the moisture in the air. In just a minute, we'll be right back, and I'll show you how I bag up rice, beans, and anything else that you want to put in a Mylar bag in a 5-gallon bucket in order to have it for long-term storage. We'll be right back. All you have to do in order to store food in these Mylar bags is simply take one of them designed for a 5-gallon bucket and put it down inside the bucket all the way to the bottom. It's really nice if these bags were flexible enough, you can just simply roll them over the top of the bucket, but they're not, so you have to deal with them as is, and being careful, pour your product down in the top of it. Of course, you want to make sure your buckets are clean and completely dry, and you certainly don't want any moisture inside the Mylar bag. And speaking of moisture, while you're storing your food in these Mylar bags, if you're off-grid and you do not run an air conditioner during the summer and it's moist and muggy outside, try to pick a particularly dry day. It can make a difference in your food preps. You want it as dry as possible. But I've found, since I run air conditioning during the warmer months, even though it's quite damp outside, air conditioning dries out the air inside your house. Or you can wait till winter. Winter is quite often very dry, especially when it's very cold outside. Okay, now I'm going to get a bag of rice and put it in the top of that Mylar. Before pouring anything in, try to spread the bag out as much as possible. That way it'll fill in. But once you pour some in, you can pull the top of the bag up and it'll spread itself out. What I'll often do is only pour about half, perhaps a little bit more, in the bag. Then let the rice spread the bag out on the inside of the bucket itself, trying to get as much air out, and also to vibrate the bag a little bit in the rice and get it to settle on down so I can get more rice in the bag. That's one 20-pound bag of rice. And I could stop there, but the bucket's only up to right there. The rice in the bucket's only up to that point. So I'm going to add more rice, and just in a new bucket add the rest of the rice and some other rice. That's probably about enough, because I want to have enough room to seal this bag up here at the top. That way, if I ever do need to open it and use it, but not use the entire 5-gallon bucket, I can simply cut it right under where it's sealed and reseal it there. This is the second bucket that I've filled with rice. I'm going to put a cutout of the instructions of how to cook long grain rice, which isn't complicated at all. Actually, you just simply get water boiling in a pan, and once you get it boiling, you stir your rice in, put a lid on it, and let it sit there and cook for 20 minutes, perhaps a little bit more, depending on how soft you like your rice. You just simply use 2 cups of water to every cup of rice. It's not complicated, but during a stressful situation, I also know me, and I'm subject to forget something that simple. I'll remember the very technical and the very important, which eating is important, cooking isn't. But I'm subject to forget simple little things like how to cook rice. But I will leave this in this particular container of rice so that I will have instructions, or if something happens to me and this is passed on to my children, grandchildren, they'll also know how to cook it. And also in this second bag, I didn't have enough new rice to fill up a whole 5-gallon bucket, so I pulled some of my older stores out of storage, and lo and behold, the bottom of the bucket was cracked. So it's very important from time to time to simply check your preps, especially your food preps, anything that's perishable, and give it a good going over and make sure the structural integrity of any storage container is still solid. That one obviously isn't. I also know when I stored that back, let's see, is around, that particular bucket was around 2011. I know it was a good bucket then, but evidently I've either set it on something or just simply Father Time has had an effect on it. Each one of the bags of rice that I had in there, I had in shrink wrap from Food Saver. All of it was still in perfectly good shape, without a doubt. But I still want the structural integrity of any container that I use to still be solid. In just a minute we'll be back and I'll show you how to seal the tops of these bags, where to seal them, and how to seal them, and also to put the oxygen absorber in there. In a 5-gallon bucket, it's suggested that you use a 2,000 to 3,000 cc oxygen absorber in the 5-gallon buckets, and a 200 to 300 in 1-gallon bucket. In these particular ones, I'm putting 2,000 cc's simply because rice packs in rather well together, and by and large there's not going to be a whole lot of additional air in the bag, so the oxygen absorber will certainly do its job. Now, if I was putting something along the lines of pasta or any other product that has a great deal of air space in it, and another good example of that would be some types of cereal. If I was storing it in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, I would use at least a 3,000 oxygen absorber or 3,000 cc oxygen absorber. If not, I would use two 2,000 cc oxygen absorbers in those, simply because of the additional air in the Mylar bag. Okay, now that I have the iron heated up to where I need it, which, like I said before, in this case it's on the number 5 setting or wool setting. Now, you can adjust it up and down as needed. If it's too hot, cool it off some. If it's not hot enough, turn it up just a little bit. You can even practice on a separate bag. But what you want to do is get the top of your bag even and put a piece of wood. And if you'll notice, I'm using a narrow piece of wood. Some people say to use a 2x4, but to me that invites wasting this much of the top of the bag. If I have to get into it for some reason, I'd have to cut that much off. And as a consequence of using a smaller one, I can cut right in under the smaller width on these particular bags and not have to waste so much. If I have to get into this rice for whatever reason, I can always go back and reseal it. What I'm going to do is making sure the top of this bag is even. I'm going to put it right there. Now, I'm not going to seal this bag, like I said before, all the way across. I'm going to leave 4 to 5 inches of the bag open so that I can come back and all at once put oxygen absorbers in both of these buckets of rice and reseal the bag of oxygen absorbers. With the instructions that came with this particular set of bags, it suggested either resealing the bag that the O2 absorbers come in, or to put them in a sealable fruit jar, just like you would jams, jellies, or any other canned product. To me, there's too much air in there. Once those oxygen absorbers are opened, they start taking all the oxygen out of the air. And the more that happens, the less use or useful life that there is left of them. That's why I prefer to go ahead and seal them right up front. Okay, I've got that lined up on there, and I'm going to start sealing this. And if you'll watch that Mylar bag, you'll see it seal. It'll get very, very smooth, not have any rough places in it. You'll be able to tell just simply by looking at it that it's sealed or not. But like I said before, I'm going to leave 4 to 5 inches of this bag unsealed for right now, and come back and put the O2 absorber in there. And then I'll seal it the rest of the way off. I'll push as much air out of the bag as I can and seal it all the way off then. That's in an effort to get as much use out of the oxygen absorbers as possible. Now I'm going to insert this oxygen absorber, making sure it lays down inside this bag of rice, and both of these Mylar bags, and then I'll reseal the bag that the oxygen absorbers are Using my seal-a-mill, as you can see, I've got this sealed completely across in order to keep as much air out and away from these absorbers as possible. Usually you can tell this one has a oxygen indicator on it. It's showing good, but even if a bag of these O2 absorbers does not have an indicator on it, you can simply feel these bags. If it still feels granulated, it's perfectly all right normally. If it has been spent, it'll be hard and much more like a wafer, and it won't be loose and grainy. Okay, now that I've inserted the oxygen absorber in here, I'm ready to seal this bag the rest of the way. In order to do that, I'm going to press as much air as I possibly can out of the bag. I'm still trying to have enough room to make sure that I can seal this bag the rest of the way across. And now the bag is obviously sealed. Not sucking any air in anywhere. And what I normally do with these bags, I will either fold them down like this and then fold them over like that, or quite often I'll just simply fold them over like that and put a lid on them, and they're ready for storage. And also I'll label the bucket with a marker so that I'll know what's in it without having to open it up. That's how I seal my food stores up, food preps, with Mylar bags. I in the past have used vacuum bags to put my food preps away, but I've also had some issues at times, especially with some products like spaghetti and various other pastas, poking a hole in the bag of the Food Saver bags. With the vacuum type bags, you depend on the vacuum inside the bag and the pumping out of the oxygen when the bag is sealed in order to protect your food preparations. These Mylar bags are a heavier product, and as a consequence you don't have to worry as much about it poking a hole in the side, and also you're not depending on the vacuum seal to protect your product. You're depending on that oxygen absorber to take the oxygen out of the atmosphere inside that bag. The bag does absolutely still need to be sealed, but you don't have a concern about that bag being sucked in to a sharp object such as pasta inside the bag. I'm just far more comfortable putting my food preps in a heavier Mylar bag and sealing them up with an oxygen absorber. It does a better job. This has been Bobby with Survival Existence, helping you help yourself. Come join us on Facebook. Please subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, and come visit us at our website at survivalexistence.com. Have a good day.